Never too late. Is that recording? Yep. Good. So, here, this one here. Yeah, Dr. Carlin, back with you. I'll just get you sorted out here. I'm just here with Dr. Taylor Johnson. We're talking about strabismus, or eye turn-in issues with kids, and what's the expectation that you could get. And Dr. Taylor was sharing with us, a family where they've got a kid just turned 4, was it left or right eye turning? Left eye's turning in, and they want to know for sure, can we fix it? And as I was mentioning then, look, I suppose the bottom line is using that terminology is problematic because we're going to stimulate them, activate them, and we'll certainly make corrections, if you like, with the intention of bringing that visual system back to visual neutral and restoring the connections around visual neutral instead of this distorted visual apparatus that they've got at the moment. I mean, in my view, the turning is an adaptive state anyway, and the brain is trying to acquire visual information that it wasn't getting accurately anyway. And you tend to get one eye shutting down at some times when they're like that, and therefore it's quite difficult for them to acquire visual information accurately. So it makes learning and being at school and all that sort of things more difficult. So, and Taylor was concerned that people weren't, the family wasn't sticking to the care plan that had been recommended, and they were starting to chop and change. And we were just talking about the importance of people sticking to the care plan when you've got a more complicated scenario, because if you've got if you've got an eye turning issue, then there's going to be a brain map that's built around that, particularly in terms of visual processing and visual acquisition and visual memory and all those more complicated concepts. They're all built around this distortion. The body's built around the distortion, so there'll be structural and biomechanical changes. There'll be gate faults in relation to this. So there's a whole bunch of things that need to be reset. And of course, if you go through module 1 and 2, you've kind of got a fair bit of that handled, and then you would then go on into the module 4, where we've got our learning cranials, which essentially deal with various machinations of the sphenoid and the vestibulocular reflex system. So you've got a really clear pathway to run down if you just go through module 1 and 2, because that clears out most of those connections and deals with the spinal levels, deals with the basics on the VOR or vestibulocular reflexes, gets the cranial base stable with category 2, gets the TMJ and all those other dural and as an extension of that fascial issues out of the way. Because as we go down the track with an eye turn-in or strabismus syndrome, we want to make sure that module 1's clear, module 2's clear. We're going to do our cranials. And the other thing we want to do is eventually potentially stretch the eye fascia down into a normal, plane of motion in the English language anyway, acquiring data left to right. So we're going to start to stretch the eye fascia down, and that will also start to help from a tissue coordination perspective, getting those eyes to track and team, and moving it back towards consensual gaze. So it's kind of complicated, but it's sort of not, because we've got a distortion pattern, and the distortion pattern needs to be unwound, and then we need to reset the system, get the visual brain activated, and then potentially stretch some of the tissues that have got used to, one eye peeking out this way and the other was having a look up and see what's going on that side. So Dr. Taylor, just to share with all the other docs out there who might be having the same sort of thing, and I know you wanted to feel like, I know how to fix this, I got it done, and we just had a conversation about practice certainty, and I said to Dr. Taylor that, well, the number one thing you will experience as you start every day is practice uncertainty in many ways, because you kind of don't know how to fix everything. But if you've got a process and you know that our chiropractic care and the way we activate people's nervous system is really effective, and there's more and more evidence to support how effective we are in applying that technology and why it's so effective. So, and I suppose as part of the NOT training process is to ensure that we give you that support and we give you that understanding and that experiential knowledge to give you that certainty when you're handling these cases, that they're going to get better. I've never seen a strabismus case that didn't get better. It's just sometimes if they're age 4, what's going to take a reset, it's going to take a while to get that system to adapt differently and to get those eyes starting to, function in a coordinated way. And sometimes, you've got a really severe case where you're still not getting that done and you've done a fair bit of work and maybe the family's not willing to wait to see it happen. Maybe they've had 3 months of care, like there's nothing in terms of, the global activation of that brain map. But, they're going, oh, we want to fix it now. Well, even if you've done all that basic preamble work in that 3 months, and they do go and have surgery with an ophthalmologist and they shorten muscles and try and get it all, force it, if you like, force it back to centre, it's still a way better result. It's a faster result. And there's a nervous system and a visual brain that's way better connected. So that's kind of, I know that's a bit of a soliloquy from me, but
no, it's good.
Does that help you to kind of feel more comfortable and more certain about being firm, docs, being firm, sometimes professionally firm with parents when they're erring or they're going, oh, I can't really see a result, and they've been, done 2 weeks of care with you or something like this, that probably realistically might take 6 to 12 months to get a really great outcome. And realistically, also it may be 2 or 3 years before you get the best possible result. And I've seen kids where I saw them when they were, 6 months of age, and when they were teenagers, there was still some minor turning. But by the time they were 18, it was fine. They had, consensual gaze, and they could track and team bilaterally without losing visual information from one side of the visual system. So one eye dropping out, what the ophthalmology people call homologous hemianopia, where you're losing, brain's going, okay, that information is just too noisy. I'm going to shut that down and just take it from the other one. So we want to see the data coming in as best possible and as efficiently possible from the eyes tracking and teaming together.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So is there any other questions about like where you would go? You mentioned you've done module 1 or 2 with this little fella, and then you're thinking, well, where am I going to go next? And we had a chat about potentially using cranials as the next port of call. Any questions about that?
Not at this point. I think I've just got to get into them more first and see what shows up.
Okay, cool. So that's the other thing, docs, is look, the modules are built so that you can do one part and then the next part and review your result. And then it may be that, you skip module 3, and with older kids, whether you've got scoliosis and stuff, where the vestibular-ocular reflex system is a kind of a key correction, that might get in the way. But with the younger kids, you can probably go 1, 2 and go straight into cranials, which would make sense in terms of, our organisational process too. And, the cranials are really simple. And in the module 4, we've built them so you've got basically 3 sections, and you deal with sphenoid function, generally, and its connections and the outcomes from those connections, and the relationship with vestibular-ocular reflex system. And then you can start looking at, eye function unilaterally, and then potentially stretching eye fascia gently and doing all those other corrections that may be useful in getting the tissue part of the process corrected as well. Is that helpful?
Yeah,
Just to kind of
definitely.
give that
Yeah.
continuum to work through?
Yeah, it's good to have something else to sort of, as a next step, once this module 1 and 2 is sort of more set in.
Awesome.
Cool.
Hope that was useful. We'll get that out to you, and we look forward to putting out another pearl of wisdom from Dr. Taylor soon. Cheers. Sorry about that. It was a hand that I could eat, but
That's
I
fine.
think that's a really good conversation.
Is that
Get
so?
out. Sorry?
Is it still recording?
No.